Hello everyone. Before this video starts, I need to talk to you honestly for a moment. I want to be open about what's happening right now. This is not the announcement I hoped I'd ever have to make, but it's one I can't avoid. This will be the final video I upload until February. I truly wish that wasn't the situation, but at the moment, I don't have any other choice. YouTube has removed monetization from Revenge Alley, and once that happens, the entire production system breaks down. I won't be able to apply again until March, unless something unexpected changes, which is very unlikely. These stories require real time, real effort, and real work to produce. Without monetization, it's simply not possible for me to continue releasing content the way I've been doing consistently over the past year. I need to take a pause. I need time to step back, reorganize, and rebuild everything happening behind the scenes so this channel can survive in the long run. I also want to be completely upfront with you. I'm sad. I'm frustrated. And honestly, this feels deeply unfair. I have followed every guideline. Every story on this channel is original. I've paid attention to every detail because I respect this platform, and I respect every single person who chooses to spend their time watching these videos. At the same time, I see other channels uploading reused clips, inappropriate material, and low-effort mass-produced content, and they continue to stay monetized without any issue. Watching a channel that was built honestly, from the ground up, take a hit like this hurts. It really does. It feels like doing things the right way ended up working against me. As difficult as it is to step away, I need this break. I need the time to fix the workflow, restructure how things are done, and make sure that when Revenge Alley returns, it comes back stronger, cleaner, and built to last. I want to be clear about something else. I'm not disappearing. I'm not quitting. The plan is to return in February and continue growing this project the way I always meant to. If you're wondering how you can support the channel during this break, it's actually very simple. Stay subscribed and make sure notifications are turned on. That's the best way to be here the moment new videos return in February. There's one more important thing you should know. Over the next days and weeks, I'll be removing the current videos from the channel as part of this reset. If there are stories you want to watch again, now is the time. Once they're removed, they will stay offline until the full rebuild is finished. Thank you, truly, for being here. Thank you for your support, your comments, your time, and your trust. This audience has treated the channel with honesty and respect, and that means more than you could ever imagine. That's exactly why I'm committed to bringing Revenge Alley back the right way. For now, enjoy the final video on the channel, and once again, thank you for watching Revenge Alley. Happy birthday to my soon-to-be ex-wife, Derek announced, pushing a manila envelope across the table toward me as his friends burst into laughter. The restaurant fell silent. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations around us stopped mid-sentence. I stared down at the envelope while my 37th birthday cake sat untouched between us, the candles still unlit. My name is Laura, and I had spent the last 8 years married to a man who believed cruelty was funny. We lived in Portland, Oregon, in a house I had helped pay for using my salary as a logistics coordinator at Thornmere Solutions. I met Derek at a friend's barbecue when I was 28. I was drawn to his charm and how easily he made people laugh. What I didn't understand at the time was that one day I would become the joke. "Open it! Open it!" his friend Tyler shouted, pounding the table with excitement. Sitting beside him, Greg already had his phone out recording, clearly expecting to capture my embarrassment. Derek leaned back in his chair wearing that familiar smug grin, the one I had grown to hate over the years. It was the look he wore when he believed he had won, even if I hadn't realized there was a contest to begin with. I lifted the envelope with steady fingers. To my own surprise, A strange calm washed over me. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. I felt clear. Inside were divorce papers, already filled out. Small sticky arrows pointed directly to the spots where my signature was required. Derek had even highlighted the sections in bright yellow, as if he thought I might overlook them. "It took me weeks to put this together," Derek said with pride. "Your birthday seemed like the perfect moment. You know, out with the old, in with the new." His friends burst out laughing again. I noticed a few people at nearby tables staring openly now, their faces caught somewhere between shock and morbid curiosity. What Derek didn't see, and what none of his clueless friends seemed to notice, was the man seated at the far end of the table. Julian had barely spoken all evening. He slowly sipped his wine, quietly observing everything with an expression I couldn't quite understand. Julian was Derek's cousin on his mother's side. He was visiting from Seattle, where he worked as an architect. He was tall, dark-haired, and carried a quiet confidence that made people naturally pay attention when he spoke. Everything Derek pretended to be, Julian actually was. As the laughter continued around me, Julian leaned closer. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Sign them," he said. "Sign them, and I can finally have my chance with you." I turned and really looked at him. Truly looked at him. Something in his eyes made my heart stumble. This wasn't sarcasm. This wasn't cruelty dressed up as humor. This was real. It was an offer. A way out. A hand reaching towards someone who had been sinking for a very long time. The truth was, I had been drowning for years. I just hadn't admitted it to myself until that moment, sitting in a restaurant with divorce papers in my hands and a room full of people waiting to watch me break. Derek and I hadn't always been like this. In the beginning, there were flowers, romantic dinners, and soft promises about the future. He could be charming when he wanted to be. He knew how to command attention and make people laugh. But over time, that charm twisted into something uglier. The jokes started small. Little comments about my cooking, remarks about my weight. He always brushed them off as harmless teasing. They weren't harmless. They became sharper, more deliberate. Eventually, I began dreading social gatherings because I never knew when I would become the target. I gave up so much to keep that marriage afloat. My friendship slowly faded as people grew tired of witnessing Derek's cutting remarks. My relationship with my own family became strained because Derek always found excuses to avoid holidays or complained nonstop when we did go. I stopped chasing a promotion at work because Derek insisted my career was just a backup plan. He said I should focus more on the house, on being available, on supporting him. The hardest part was how long it took me to see what was happening. When manipulation happens slowly, wrapped in just enough affection to keep you hoping, you don't notice yourself being taken apart piece by piece. I convinced myself that all couples struggled, that Derek's behavior was just stress, that things would improve if I tried harder, loved more, gave more. They never improved. They only got worse. I first noticed Julian about 2 years ago at a family reunion Derek attended reluctantly. While Derek complained about the food and made cruel comments about his relatives, Julian sat with me on the porch and listened. He asked about my job, my interests, my goals. He treated me like someone who mattered, not like background entertainment. After that reunion, I found myself thinking about Julian more than I should have. I told myself it meant nothing. I was married. It wasn't inappropriate. But the way Julian treated me made Derek's behavior impossible to ignore. Julian remembered things I mentioned months earlier. He sent articles about topics I'd casually brought up. At family gatherings, he made sure I wasn't alone, that I had someone to talk to, that I felt included. I kept telling myself he was just kind. But sitting in that restaurant, hearing his words echo in my mind, I wondered if I had been blind to something growing quietly all along. Derek was still laughing with his friends, completely unaware that his carefully staged humiliation was unraveling right in front of him. I looked back down at the divorce papers, the highlighted lines, the arrows pointing toward my future. For 8 years, I had twisted myself into shapes to fit Derek's idea of a wife. I had swallowed my pride, muted my voice, and made myself smaller and smaller until I barely recognized who I had become. And for what? For a man who thought serving me divorce papers on my birthday in front of an audience was a joke. You know what, Derek? I said, my voice cutting straight through the laughter around the table. You're absolutely right. This really is the perfect birthday gift. I reached into my purse and pulled out a pen. It was the same pen I used at work to sign contracts authorizing shipments worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. My movements were slow and controlled. I flipped to the first signature page and signed my name, then the second, then the third. The laughter began to die off, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Derek's smug grin faltered. Doubt crept into his expression. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Exactly what you told me to do," I replied calmly, not lifting my eyes as I signed the final page. "I'm signing the divorce papers. Happy birthday to me." I slid the papers back across the table. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. The pressure that had lived in my chest for so long suddenly vanished, and I could breathe again. Truly breathe. "Wait, no, that's not," Derek stammered, his face flushing red. "You were supposed to cry. You were supposed to beg me to change my mind." "Why would I beg to stay married to someone who treats me like this?" I asked, honestly curious. "You just handed me my freedom, Derek, and you did it in front of witnesses." Tyler and Greg exchanged awkward looks. This was clearly not how the night was meant to end. Greg had even lowered his phone, no longer recording, his arm hanging uselessly at his side. I stood up, gathering my purse and the birthday card my sister had sent, the one I hadn't yet opened. Julian stood with me, his movement so smooth it felt instinctive. "Where do you think you're going?" Derek demanded, finally raising his voice. "Home," I answered simply, "to start packing your things." "My things?" he snapped. "That's my house." "Actually," I said calmly, "it's in my name. I bought it before we got married, remember? You didn't want to be added to the deed because you said paperwork was boring." I smiled, and it felt like the first genuine smile I'd had in years. "So thank you for that." Julian rested his hand gently against my back as we walked toward the exit. Behind us, Derek's voice grew louder and sharper, demanding explanations, insisting this wasn't funny anymore. No, it wasn't funny. But for the first time in 8 years, I was the one walking away smiling. The cool Portland air brushed against my face as we stepped outside. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the smell of rain-soaked pavement and pine trees. Julian walked beside me in quiet understanding, not rushing to fill the silence. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" he finally asked when we reached the parking lot. "The house is mine," I reminded him. "Derek can get a hotel or sleep in his car. I honestly don't care anymore." Julian nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Would you like some company?" he asked. "Just in case he causes trouble when he gets back." I studied his face under the streetlights, looking for any sign of a hidden motive. I didn't find one. What I saw was genuine concern and something else. Something warm that made my stomach flutter. "I'd like that," I said. We drove separately to my house, a modest 2-story craftsman I had bought with my own savings before Derek ever entered my life. I had always loved it, the wide front porch, the maple tree in the backyard that turned a bright orange every fall. Somehow, during my marriage, I had forgotten that the house was mine, that I earned it, that it was my home long before Derek moved in and started acting like it belonged to him. Inside, Julian helped me box up Derek's belongings. His clothes from the closet, his sports memorabilia from the garage, his collection of expensive whiskey he bought with money we couldn't truly spare. With every item placed into a box, I felt another invisible chain break. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said as we worked. "Of course." "What you said at the restaurant about how Derek treated you, was it always like that?" I paused, holding a handful of Derek's socks over a cardboard box. "Not always," I said slowly. "At least it didn't feel that way at first. The jokes started small, little comments here and there. By the time I realized how bad it had become, I was already buried in it. I didn't know how to get out." Julian set down the box he was holding and turned to face me. "I noticed," he said quietly, "at family gatherings, the way he spoke to you, the way you shrank whenever he opened his mouth. I wanted to step in so many times, but I didn't know if it was my place." "Why did you say what you said tonight?" I asked, voicing the question that had been burning in my chest since the restaurant. "About having your chance?" He met my eyes without hesitation. "Because I've been in love with you for 2 years," he said. "Watching you suffer in that marriage was unbearable. I never crossed a line because you were married, and I respected that. But tonight, when he handed you those papers and expected you to fall apart, I saw my moment. I saw a chance to finally tell you the truth." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Julian, you don't have to say anything," he added quickly. "I'm not asking for anything right now. I just needed you to know that someone sees you, really sees you, and believes you deserve far better than anything Derek ever gave you." Before I could say a word, headlights flashed across the living room window. Derek was home. The front door flew open with enough force to shake the pictures on the wall. Derek stormed inside, his face twisted with anger, with Tyler and Greg following close behind him like obedient shadows. "What the hell is going on here?" Derek yelled, his eyes bouncing between me, Julian, and the stacks of boxes lining the living room. "Julian, what are you doing in my house?" "It's not your house," I said evenly. "We already covered that at the restaurant. Your belongings are packed. I suggest you take them and leave." Derek's face darkened, shifting from red to a deep purple. "You can't just throw me out," he snapped. "We've been married for 8 years." "Exactly," I replied. 8 years of being your target, your joke, your way of feeling superior? You wanted a divorce, Derek? You got it. Now go." Tyler stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Hey, you can't talk to him like that. Derek's our guy." Julian moved to my side, his presence steady and grounding. "I think you should listen to her," he said calmly. "This is her property, and she's asked you to leave." Derek turned toward Julian, his eyes narrowing. He took in the way Julian stood close to me, protective without being aggressive. I could see the realization settling in, the understanding that something had shifted in a way he hadn't planned for. "Wait a second," Derek said slowly, suspicion thick in his voice. "Are you two? Have you been, He couldn't even finish the thought. "I've never cheated on you," I said flatly. "Unlike you." I had found the credit card statements 6 months earlier. Hotel charges in Vancouver, expensive dinners, jewelry purchases that were never meant for me. When I confronted him, he laughed, called me paranoid, and made me feel foolish for questioning him. Derek's face drained of color. "That's not... I never... Her name is Brittany, right?" I continued calmly. "The receptionist at your gym." He shifted uncomfortably. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Or did you just assume I was too stupid to notice?" The room went quiet. Even Tyler and Greg looked uneasy now, shuffling their feet and avoiding my eyes. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside me. "You're going to take your boxes and leave. The divorce papers are signed, which means this process can move forward quickly. You're getting nothing from me, Derek. Not this house, not my savings, not another second of my time. Because unlike you, I paid attention during our marriage. I know about the money you hid, the debts you ran up in both our names, the lies you told to make yourself look better. Derek opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. And if you try to fight me on any of it, I have proof. Every cruel message, every suspicious charge, every public humiliation. I've been documenting it for 2 years, Derek, just in case I ever found the courage to leave. I motioned toward the boxes. Turns out you gave me that courage tonight. Now take your things and get out of my house. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Derek slowly reached for the closest box. Tyler and Greg grabbed the others, and without another word, they headed out the door. I stood by the window and watched as they loaded everything into Derek's truck. When he climbed into the driver's seat, he looked back at the house one last time. His face held disbelief and defeat. Then he drove away. Something inside me finally loosened, like a knot that had been tied for 8 years had finally come undone. The weeks that followed moved fast. Lawyers, documents, paperwork, new beginnings. My attorney was impressed with the records I had kept, calling it one of the most detailed cases she'd ever handled. Derek tried to claim half the house, half my savings, even half my retirement. But with clear evidence of his infidelity and financial misconduct, he didn't stand a chance. Julian stayed in Portland longer than planned. At first, he said it was just to make sure I was okay and to help during the transition. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear neither of us wanted him to leave. We took things slowly, thoughtfully. There were long dinners that stretched late into the night, quiet walks through the neighborhood, conversations that drifted from serious to silly and back again. Julian was patient in ways Derek never had been, present in ways I'd forgotten were possible. "I don't want to rush you," Julian said one evening as we sat on my front porch, watching the sunset color the sky in pinks and golds. "You've been through a lot. I'm not going anywhere." "I know," I said, reaching for his hand. "That's why I trust you." The divorce was finalized 3 months after that birthday dinner. I kept the house, my retirement, and most of our shared savings. Derek was ordered to repay the debts he had secretly built up, leaving him to deal with the financial mess for years. But the true sense of closure came a few weeks later at a family gathering I almost skipped. Julian's mother was celebrating her 60th birthday, and the entire extended family would be there, including Derek. When Julian first mentioned it, I hesitated. I wasn't sure I was ready to see my ex-husband in a room full of people. "You don't have to come if you're not comfortable," Julian said gently. "I completely understand." But something inside me wanted to go. Not out of spite. Not because I wanted revenge. I wanted to go because I refused to let Derek's presence control my life anymore. For 8 years, I had shaped my choices around his moods, his comfort, and his preferences. That chapter was closed. "I'll be there," I told Julian, "and I want to walk in holding your hand." The expression on his face, pure happiness mixed with disbelief, made that decision feel absolutely right. The party was held at a beautiful restaurant overlooking the Willamette River. I wore a dress I never would have chosen during my marriage. It made me feel confident, comfortable, and fully myself. Julian looked at me as if no one else in the room existed. We entered together, his hand steady and warm in mine. The room was already filled with family members. Conversations buzzed. Laughter floated through the air. And there, near the bar, stood Derek. We saw each other at the same moment. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. His face cycled quickly through confusion, recognition, shock, and finally something that looked unmistakably like devastation. Julian gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "You okay?" I smiled, openly, freely. "I'm perfect." Derek couldn't stop staring. Every few minutes, I caught him looking over at us, his expression growing darker each time. I noticed he was alone. Brittany from the gym was nowhere in sight, and his usual sidekicks, Tyler and Greg, were clearly not invited to this family gathering. About halfway through the evening, he finally approached us. Julian's grip tightened just slightly, but he didn't step in front of me. He trusted me to handle it. "So this is what you've been doing," Derek said, his words slightly slurred. He'd clearly been visiting the bar often. "Running off with my cousin the minute our marriage ended." "You ended our marriage, Derek," I said calmly. "On my birthday, in front of witnesses. Remember?" His face flushed. "That was supposed to be. I didn't think you would actually—" "You didn't think I would actually leave," I finished for him. "And that's the problem. You never thought about what I might want or feel or choose. You were too busy being the center of your own world to notice anyone else in it." Several family members had gone quiet. I could feel their attention on us. Derek shifted under their stares. "You know what's ironic?" I continued, keeping my tone light. "You handed me those divorce papers thinking you were humiliating me. But what you actually gave me was the greatest gift of my life. You gave me a way out, and I took it." Julian stepped forward then, his voice calm but firm. "I think it's time for you to walk away, cousin. You've done enough damage." For a moment, I thought Derek might argue. But as he looked around at the watching relatives, the aunts, uncles, and cousins who already knew what he'd done at my birthday dinner, his shoulders sagged. Without another word, he turned and walked away. In the months that followed, I heard updates through the family grapevine. Derek's life had taken a sharp downward turn. Brittany left him after discovering he was broke, weighed down by the debts from the divorce settlement. He lost his job at the sales firm after showing up drunk too many times. The last I heard, he was living alone in a small studio apartment across town, estranged from much of his family, who had finally seen him for who he truly was. Meanwhile, Julian and I were building something real. He transferred his architecture work to Portland, and together we spent our evenings renovating my little craftsman house, slowly turning it into a shared home. He planted a garden in the backyard. I discovered that I actually enjoyed cooking when someone appreciated the effort. We adopted a rescue dog named Maple, who slept at the foot of our bed and barked fiercely at squirrels. On the 1-year anniversary of that disastrous birthday dinner, Julian took me back to the same restaurant. I hesitated at first. The memories were still sharp. But he insisted, and I trusted him. We sat at a different table this time, one by the window overlooking the city lights. When dessert was supposed to arrive, the waiter instead brought out a small box. My heart nearly stopped. "1 year ago," Julian said, taking my hands, "someone tried to use this place to break you. I wanted to reclaim it, to turn it into something beautiful." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. "Laura, you are the strongest, most resilient person I have ever known. I've loved you since the moment I truly got to know you. I promise to spend my life reminding you how extraordinary you are. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears of joy. As he slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about the strange path that had led me there. A ruined birthday had become a reclaimed life. A broken marriage had made room for a love I never knew existed. Looking back now, I understand something clearly. The best revenge wasn't watching Derek fall apart, though there was a certain satisfaction in knowing he faced the consequences of his cruelty. The real victory was living well, building a life filled with respect, safety, and genuine love, finally knowing my worth. Derek thought he was delivering a devastating blow that night in the restaurant. Instead, he handed me the key to my freedom, and I used it to unlock a future more beautiful than anything I could have imagined.